You
Yeah.
think so? Jerry, your son's doing awfully well. My God. Your grandson.
Yeah.
Yeah, wow. I'm impressed.
He's a fun kid to watch, that's for sure.
Recording in progress.
Ooh.
He's a big kid too. I didn't realize he's so big.
Yeah.
Yeah, he just a
That light's just perfect, huh?
Yeah.
April?
Yeah, so bad. Ooh.
Gonna blow up?
Recording stopped.
No, it's, is that you?
Recording in progress.
Scott, is that you?
It may be to on his phone because it's being recorded. It's
Okay.
morning and it's being recorded and all I could say. This is something that you should have in your stuff that I received and long ago, and it should be in your records.
Got it.
Not mine.
Got it.
All kinds of good stuff, pictures and everything. It was for the color work they did on Black.
Is Wes supposed to be here? Wes Smith?
Yeah. He did send an email just a few minutes before we started. Or, yeah. Not sure what that's all about. Yes. Let me see what's going on.
And you want this one too?
No,
No, I got this. Okay.
Yeah, I have materials here we can reference if you want. See what that going on.
Oh, minutes, I can wait minutes, I just printed this out tonight, thank you.
Mhm.
Let's see what's going on. He just sent 6:56. He sent something.
Doors open.
That's likely. Okay. All right.
Start.
I think we're. All right.
Time to call our meeting to order.
Sounds good. Everybody's here is getting here. Scott is finding his dog, so he's on the phone. Hopefully you have found your dog.
No, but no, so you come to me, I'm still looking.
Oh, boy. All right, and it's, I think Bennett's on Zoom with us. Still hobbling a little bit from his knee surgery, and decided not to expose himself to this motley crew.
I hope not.
Or I was talking in a different way than you might have been thinking. No. Okay, let's figure out who's here. Sarah?
Sarah Kimball's here.
I'm here. Chris?
Chris McAleer?
David Cameron?
Bill Terry?
Ken
Let's see, that makes Scott, I don't, are you gonna wanna vote, or you will wait till you get here? We're gonna hold off on Scott being a member of the voting group tonight. That means that we have to go with our most senior alternate?
Oh, gosh, again.
You're our most senior alternate.
Hopefully that doesn't mean I'm older than everybody.
No, I mean, if you were 25, you'd be our most senior. So, consider it not of age, but of longevity. And let's see,
Minutes.
minutes from our September 8th meeting.
Why September 8th?
Yeah, why is, all right.
Should it be November 8th?
No,
November 10th.
November 10th.
Okay,
I just,
so I
I'm
thought.
just reading it according to the way it's on the agenda,
Okay.
okay? So. I didn't send these out.
Okay, November 10th.
November 10th minutes. Has everyone taken a look at those things? Any changes or edits? Do I hear a vote to accept the minutes for the last meeting?
So moved.
Aye.
I'm not sure.
Who was that?
Scott, you're not in until we officially approve that you're in.
Okay.
I have Huntley here who's gonna back you up for the moment, okay? All right. I heard a motion to approve second. Do I have a second? I got a second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. All right. We're up for public comment. Jerry?
Yeah, sure, Dockley. I've been reading your drafts of the proposed zoning ordinance for solar systems, and really applaud the effort. I mean, to me, it's a good start, and it's something that the town needs. I'm really concerned about what's happened in Freiburg to happen here, and I think any measures to mitigate that happening are good and heading in the right direction. My two main issues with what's proposed is, first and foremost, being if there was a way to ban all community scale solar systems, I would be very much in favor of that. 5 acres to me is way too big, and I don't know what the laws are and how it pertains, but to me, I would strongly support anything that banned that kind of use at all. And again, I don't know if it's possible or not. And then secondly, in general, with these, what I've seen so far for drafts, to me, it's a good start, and I get what's being said, but too often I find that this planning board tries to oversimplify things that actually need to be complex and difficult. When you take a 17-page document and you try to whittle it down to 2, you're actually losing a lot of what should be in there. And there's an awful lot in here that's wrought with contradictions. It really bothers me when I see things like to the maximum extent possible, or what's reasonable. When things are left to interpretation, meaning like what someone thinks is reasonable, well, what one person thinks is reasonable, one other person might think is completely unreasonable. And so I'd like to see things defined. And just as an example, like noise, for instance. When towns address noise, they always put a number to it, put a decibel number to it. What is unreasonable noise? Well, 70 decibels might be unreasonable noise. And those are things that the towns put into ordinances, an actual number. When it comes to lighting, it should be a number, how many lumens are allowed. And so, I mean, it should be specific. I understand the reasoning not to put those in there, because it's like, well, if we're too strict, then maybe people won't vote for it. But if you do your jobs right, and explain to people why things are in there, why something complex is in there, it's something that we should consider anyway. Just as an example, like your height restrictions, and what's the front of the yard and the back of the yard. My house, for instance, if I put a solar array 30 feet high in front of my house, nobody in town would see it. If I put one on the hill behind my house, 15 feet high, everybody in town will see it. And that's where you can use things like geometry and things like that to specify where things can go and where things can't go. When it comes to defining screening for plants and shrubbery, towns put in exactly what's meant by screening, not reasonable screening. It's, you need this number of bushes of this type of bush to be put in. And yes, that's complex and difficult and sometimes scary. People want to say, no, we don't want to be that strict here. And I get that. Actually, I think it's not a bad approach. It's the right approach and your hearts are in the right place. But sometimes things need to be complex so that they can be understood. There's a lot in here. This is kind of to me like reading a horoscope. What you want to see in here, you'll pull out here. It's like if you want to see that this Jackson being really strict on where these things can go, you might get that out of this. If you want to think, hey, Jackson's allowing a lot, I mean, we can put up to 5 acres of solar panels, then you might think, gee, we do whatever we want. And I also don't like to see ordinances that pull out one thing. For instance, land erosion. You can build your house and not have land mitigating erosion processes. When you put up a solar panel, you have to use land erosion techniques, measurements. So, I mean, it's just that kind of stuff. If you're going to apply it to one thing, it doesn't work very well. Things like noise and lights. I mean, it'd be great to have a noise ordinance in town. It'd be great to have a light ordinance in town. But if you have a light
We have
ordinance,
both.
then we should apply that to.
We don't need to specify something that's already in place in an ordinance if it's already in place. Just as we don't have to mention speed limits in here because it's already done someplace else.
But does our light ordinance and our noise ordinance requirements, are they as strict as it would be in here? For instance, like you could say you can't have this type of lights on your solar array, but if you say it's not for my solar array, then you can put it in. And that's what I mean as contradictions.
I hear what you're saying, but I'm not trying to.
And I'm not trying to be critical. Again, I applaud the effort because I really am afraid that what happened in Freiburg can happen in Jackson. And I don't think I think there's things that we don't have to be as concerned with because we don't have that kind of acreage lots and stuff like that. But
Actually, even closer to home, what happened on Switchback Road?
yeah,
I mean, really.
And that's another great example of we have a lot of corner lots in town. We have lots of hills in town. For instance, that one's in someone's rear lot on the side of their property. Because if you want to say that they're on Stem Turn Lane, that's the back of their property on the side. So any corner lot, that's going to be a problem with. As opposed to if you have a specific, this is how they are screened with shrubs that grow to 20 feet high. Of this type of shrubs need to be planted to screen these things. Like not a reasonable thing, like a requirement saying you have to do this in order to do that. Because what you're really trying to accomplish is to keep these things out of sight for the most part. There are ways we can do that. It would be something much more complex than this. And that's what I would like to see. And again, I would support any measures that's going to mitigate it from happening, even if it's just 5 acres. Like I would like to see no acres of community scale. But if 5 is the best we could do, I would support that too. Again, I think something is needed, but I just would like to see it more complex and more direct than this.
Yeah, I thank you for your input. We kind of worked through some of the needs to be specific and not be specific. Some of the things that are very specific are in the building code already, so we don't want to duplicate an effort that's already there. We've had input from Kevin saying that he has a lot of tools in his building code requirements, but the ones that he doesn't have, we're trying to include here. And we will have a public hearing, and we will be taking in more input at that point in time. But I appreciate what you're saying. To the point around the 5 acres, 5 acres is a maximum, and it's still intended to be something that is accessory, and that would be a maximum. But say, as a for example, the folks at the Wentworth, which is a very large property, decided that they needed to put in a ground mount system to supply for some of the units that aren't really solar oriented properly. The maximum size they could possibly put in would be limited to the 5 acres, but it still would have to be accessory and therefore would have to fit all the requirements, and it's highly likely that it would be less than 5 acres.
I understand, and does the 150, the new thing I've seen here is 150% of power usage.
Yes.
That would seem to be pretty restricting and would probably prevent someone from being able to do 5 acres in the first place, I would think.
Well, that's kind of the point, but if you had 40 units that were going to put one of these in, for example, yeah, a 5 acre might be something that's there.
But you guys, but 5 acres is big, like, it's,
It is.
100 by 1100.
I mean, it's a couple football fields put together.
Yeah, it is, and there are places, for example, that we've talked about that might be excellent examples of where something like that might make sense. For example, the old town, was it dump or town
Road up there.
landfill, which is a 5 acre property, or for something odd size that might make sense to do an implementation there.
It would never be seen by anywhere, so yeah, I understand that.
But, something like that, I guess we're trying to look at this and appreciate your input, but we're trying to look at this in terms of what's the possibility of somebody, buying a 200 acre, and we have 200 acre lots out there that are landlocked right now. Somebody decides instead of timber, using timber lot, make it a solar lot. And somehow creating that as a timber farm as opposed to a solar farm instead of a timber farm. This kind of regulation would prevent that. The requirements for access and also the ability to hook it up to to the infrastructure from NHDC would make it difficult for someone to consider it to be, if you're going 5 acres of it, it's not really going to make sense for them to do that, to build all the infrastructure to do that small an installation.
You'd also want to consider then putting into your subdivision rules where you couldn't subdivide and then put this all intent.
We basically said you can't do it. It has to be attached to a residence. And
because of the accessory use part of it.
yeah. And so we've got little pieces that we're puzzling together and putting it together like almost like Legos here, if you will.
And
Just a
that
little
makes
bit of
sense.
this and a little bit of that.
You're trying to do what you can to mitigate the best that you can with what could happen actually in reality.
Right,
What's
and without trying to put onerous restrictions, because I think we want to encourage people to actually develop their property so that their property will provide them fossil fuel-free electricity. I think that is something we want to have happen. And we've talked to council, and council's given us some input on what kinds of things we could do, belt and suspenders kind of thing. And we still need to talk it through as to what additional things we want to do, or if we want to do.
Bill, could you also, before you have the hearing, clarify that does this apply to the village district as well?
Yes.
Because
If you read the zoning ordinance, all the uses for the residential district are listed, and then the first line of village district is everything that's in the residential is also allowed in the village in addition to, and then there's lists of various businesses and so on. So this would be for all. This is the whole town.
right, but
The
the village district is different, has different rules to me.
It has,
Yeah,
Sorry, I'll take your
the
word.
only real difference between the two is that the standards in the village district have different setback rules and different frontage rules for.
That are less restrictive, so we can have less restrictive rules, but we just anyway, I'd like to see clarified that this also applies to the village district.
It's, well, that's in there, it, I mean,
The all,
it is.
4.3.2.11 is all uses permitted in the rural residential district are permitted in the village district, and in addition, then there's a list of 8 more things that are allowed. So there's more variety that is allowed in the village district than in the rural residential.
Right, but again, to me, you can read our whole zoning ordinance and you feel like a horoscope, but I don't see that it's saying that this would apply to that.
Well, it's listed as a use.
But you're restricting use specifically in the rural residential district with this
All right.
ordinance.
If you add to section 4.3.1, the rural district's regulations, and number 10, you have 4.3.1.1, uses permitted, and that would be number 10, under customary home occupations in the Jackson Historical Society. You would have solar energy systems in compliance with this section. So it's allowed in the whole town.
Right, but with the restrictions that you're putting in the rural residential district apply also to the village district.
Yes,
I'm not talking about the use, I guess about the uses.
and they have to apply in compliance with this section.
But section 17 only applies to the rural residential district.
No, it applies to everybody.
Applies to everything.
I don't read it that way, but.
Okay, well, we'll get you a course in
But as long as-
legal schmiegel reading.
But that's not important to me. What's important to me is that it applies to both. And then-
It does.
Then it's good.
It does.
I'm good with that.
We can,
Disagreeing on the semantics is not important to me at all.
we can affirm that it does. And believe me, we spend time reading this stuff and worrying it to death. In fact, as Scott, who's on the phone there, says, we beat a dead horse after the horse has already been beaten twice.
Now,
Right, and
I don't want to set any alarm bells, but we had friends over for dinner one night, and she was approached by a company that wanted to lease 15 acres for a solar farm. She turned them down, but how many other people have approached?
Yeah, the good news is that once we have our first public hearing, this in effect would apply to any installation
Good.
going forward,
and
because,
then if it doesn't pass, then it doesn't apply.
Yeah.
so we
But
only have a few more weeks of exposure, so I'd expect if there's gonna be any kind of land rush, that it would happen in the next couple of weeks.
Well, we didn't think anything like this could happen in Jackson, 15 acres, but that's just one
Yes, it
person.
can. Which is why we're doing it.
Exactly.
Exactly. Yeah. No, Jerry, I appreciate your input, and I think many of the things you're talking about are things we've worried through. We are a little bit reluctant, I think, to put in some of the things that you've described, simply because there are already things in place that address them. And for example, I mean, it does talk about noise specifically, and we do have a noise ordinance, but generally the installations don't have a noise factor. It's not an issue. Lighting generally is not an issue on these. But we're saying, yeah, it needs to be screened, downcast, and all that other good stuff. But you're not going to run lighting on these things at night, unless it's an emergency kind of situation. So I sit with you on trying to mitigate as much as we can about the impact of this, particularly its visual impact. and I'm not sure how much control we have over the site plan review. And because we don't have site plan authority in Jackson for the planning board, therefore we can't do that. We can't do it for a house build, a business build now, and we can't create an authority for this that we don't have for anything else. So what we're trying to do is work within the structure that we have available to us. If we wanted to do site plan, we'd have to restructure our whole zoning ordinance to allow that and get the town to agree to allow that for the planning board. So we're trying to stay within the authority that we have. The building code is pretty extensive on this as well. So I've started doing my deep dive on some of this to look at some of the different pieces, and my God, it's amazing how much stuff that's out there, and also how much stuff that planning boards have put into effect that really are beyond the need, simply because of either cost factors, the state of the art of where things are right now compared to where they were 5 years ago. Yeah, so understand your comments. I think we're I don't know, I think we're on the same page as you are. You know, we'll do our best to make sure that we're hitting the highlights of what we can do. We will have a public hearing. We're just talking about what the timing of that will be. We will have the public hearing in conjunct with our next month meeting, which is the 12th of January. And then we'll have a follow-up public hearing 2 weeks after that.
Thanks, Bob.
So, and we still have some work to do tonight. And if you bring your comments at our next meeting, we greatly appreciate it. Hopefully, you know, if there's something that you really talk to this lady, and I'm sure she'll get my ear.
Well, I'll see what you come up with for the draft for the hearing.
I had some questions, that's the reason why I asked him to come tonight, so there you go.
Yeah, I mean, my biggest concern is, and again, I don't know if there's a way to do it or not, but I enjoyed listening you talk through about the 5 acre thing, because that's my biggest hang up, because I would like less than that, but it sounds like you're on the right path there, so kudos for that.
I don't like it either. It's like, all right, but it gives a scope that says, you know, if somebody's coming in, for example, the 15-acre deal, they're looking and going, 5 acres is the maximum, it's not even worth their bother.
Yeah. That's a good point about that, so I mean, it's...
So, and it has to be accessory use, and so it can't be a commercial installation. It's gotta be for residents of Jackson.
Even the 5 acres couldn't be a commercial?
That's correct, that's what it says.
Oh, okay. I'm not against commercial, I just...
No, I am.
We're way behind the rest of the country, or the rest of the
No,
world.
we're way ahead of the rest of the country.
As far as with solar panels, though,
Yeah.
and
We're way ahead.
alternate energy. Yeah?
We're way ahead. Don't think of us being behind, we're way ahead.
I'm not saying I like it, but I'm just saying that
I guess for the kinds of installations that make sense commercially, we really don't have the
space.
We don't. First of all, the cost per acreage is crazy, and the terrain is terrible. The only places where it makes sense to do something like that is in the floodplain, which you can't do in the floodplain.
well, there are some properties here that you could do it.
There are,
Large
and they're mostly landlocked, or they're remote. And the cost to have the power line sent out for a 5-acre deal, you already blew it.
Yeah.
And Sarah, I didn't realize that the village district was a 4.3 zoning ordinance. I thought it was a 4.4. Like, I didn't realize it was under the same guidelines as the rural residential. It's just it's a subset of the rural residential district. I thought they were completely different numbers in there. My bad on that.
Well, it's 4.3 is district regulations, so that means that you have the regulations for both districts.
Right.
Is in there.
What's defined under the village district isn't just like you said, it's an addition to what's
Yeah.
in there.
Yep. Yeah, 431 is rural and 432 is village.
Yeah, I was wrong about that.
Yeah.
I didn't realize. I just looked at your draft, and to me, it wasn't clear.
Yeah.
It is when you look at the actual ordinance and see where the village district lies. I thought the village district was outside of the rural residential district. It's not really by our ordinance. It's just part of it with additional rules. That's all.
Yes, Sarah is our resident genius on this, and she pays real good attention.
I've just worked with it for 2 years.
And when she does it, and when she doesn't, Scott's on her back.
Right.
Thank you very much for hearing me out.
Okay, thank you. All right, well, we were going to introduce our new planning board member. Okay.
Wait a minute, get more?
Yeah.
So I got a call today from somebody who owns property in Jackson. They own it up in East Pasture. Are you familiar with East Pasture, West Pasture? So high-end condos. And I promised I would run it up the flagpole. So they have a water system up there where apparently the well is on the west side of East Pastures. And then they must have a pipe that goes over to the east side, which has to go through Black Mountain somehow, and they've got tanks over there. And they've been told by FX Lions that it's rather, it may fail at any time. So they're asking, and by the way, so I'm trying to not give you my opinion here, but they're saying they're trying to find if there's any town money, state money, or federal money that would help them out on this project, which they estimate at $150,000 to $200,000. So I throw that out. Anybody have any thoughts on that? I have my own thoughts, but I would rather hear what other people say, whether the town would be willing to, again, this is a totally private community, whether the town, the state, federal government would have any interest in funding any of this at all. So that's my...
FX Lions would know because, was it Whispering Brook or whatever it is, just across from Nordic Village, well, right on the same side, so they just ran into a lot of that, and FX Lions helped them out to get some, I don't know if it was federal or state.
Really?
Yeah.
And that's a private...
Yeah, well, Fran would know, like I said.
All right, I'll check with them, but I don't know, anybody have any initial thoughts on that? My thoughts is, this is a, private thing, and that's their problem, not ours.
They could always check with the select board. I mean, we don't really,
Right,
that's not really our guy.
I will check with this local state rep and see what he thinks.
Yeah.
Yeah, those
I just told you what I thought.
you know about those guys.
Well, geez, they're, bribes, they look for bribes.
So it's high pass.
They just passed the
East
ball
and west,
somewhere.
right?
High Pastures east and west, but they got the pumping station on west, which is my side, that somehow they got a pipe that goes over to east, and they got tanks over there that gravity feed down to the other houses. And to me, it would seem that the folks that developed that, that's their problem. And if they're no longer contributing to that, they're gonna have
They're
to make
all
an assessment.
All bankrupt.
Did they?
Not positive. There were a bunch of different real estate agents and whatnot that were tied up in that.
But they just sold some more property, is that?
That's John Fisher's, I believe.
Is it his, that's what I'm not sure, whether it's his or he's already sold it to somebody else.
Now, somehow he got those lots and he sold them.
All right, so.
I think, if the ones I'm thinking of, yes.
So that's all I have to say. I promised I would throw it out, and maybe some future discussion, or we'll take it up with the selectmen and see what they have to say. And I promised I would research what the state and feds had to say as well.
Yeah. The planning board really has no jurisdiction.
Okay.
That's all I can say.
Well, I just had to bring it up to somebody.
Give them a paddle.
I'm sorry?
Give them a paddle.
Yes, there we go.
Okay.
End of discussion.
All right,
Okay.
next item.
New member.
Pardon?
New member.
New member, yes. At the last select board meeting, they voted in a new alternate, so there'll be someone more junior to you.
Really? Oh, I'm gonna feel good.
It's Deborah Hill, if I get the name correct. And she is a Jackson resident of, I think, at least 5 years, and she's very interested in being a member of the planning board.
Too bad we couldn't get some on the ZBA.
Well, you gotta do better recruiting, I don't know.
Yeah, we're down one full-time.
Anyway, so yeah, I think we still have one more open
One more.
alternate position, so we welcome another female member to the group. And she is not here, I'll tell you why she's not here. Her daughter is a Kennett High School, and she's a sophomore. She made the varsity basketball team.
Oh,
And they have a game tonight.
Okay.
First game she's going to be played in, and she said, "I've got to be there, not here." And I said, "You sure as heck do."
yeah.
Which I will remind you, soon we'll be able to watch those games on,
Yes.
on television on Channel 3.
Yes.
So,
Which is also the select board agreed to pay the fee, and it was because of the fellow sitting next to me that negotiated the process.
Well,
Take-
we still haven't, we still don't have it yet.
Yeah, but thank you. Anyway, okay.
Good to see you, Jerry.
Thanks.
Thanks, Jared.
Thanks.
Next is a gentleman said, are you Wes?
Wes, welcome.
Thank you.
6:56, you send the material. That's timely.
I didn't get it till late, and I was
That
in the
is
field.
really timely. I mean, it gives us a lot of time to review it
Yes.
and look at it. And
I asked Jim for a couple of days to get that to me, and he sent it at 10:05. so-
Please introduce yourself to this group here.
Yeah, Wes Smith from Horizons Engineering. Used to be formerly of Foreign Surveys, but Horizons Engineering bought Foreign Survey. Worked with David Douglas for a long time,
Welcome.
and now
We haven't seen you in a while.
I have not been here for about 5 years. So I don't know if any of you. I think she was definitely on the board. I remember her, and I think Scott was on the board.
Yes.
Well, he's-
Yeah, Scott somewhere. I don't know.
I'll put him back
Yeah.
on mute. He was,
So what we're trying to do is, this is kind of late in the season to try to deal with this, but Foreign Surveys originally did in 2016 a survey, boundary survey, and it was just for somebody who wasn't going to have it recorded. So David Douglas had stamped the plan and given them a paper copy. Typically, this is what it looks like. You want to see. It's just a standard survey that would go to a landowner that, if they wanted to record it, typically we would add the statement, the RSA statement saying that this is not a subdivision, no new streets and ways are shown, and that's what this this document.
Verbiage.
Typically, if David was still alive, he would just add that statement, produce it on a Mylar, sign it, and record it. Unfortunately, he's no longer with us, so we can't have him do that. This is a boundary survey that is just of these two lots showing the boundary as it exists. There's nothing new about it. It's not, we didn't create a road, we didn't do a subdivision, nothing. It's just a standard boundary survey. So what we're trying to do, and this has been done in the past, is to get the planning board to stamp and sign it, saying that they would acknowledge that it is a boundary survey and not, showing anything new.
Yep.
And that it's being just acknowledged for recording. And so this is the email that we had sent. It's a little late, but basically, this is the statement we're looking to have a stamp and signature on, and so we can try to record it at the registry, because they want to now record that so they can sell the property.
I am confused. You did a boundary survey, is that based on the deed?
Yes.
Right.
We are certifying the boundary survey based on the deeds for those two parcels. And so it's not
And
showing.
they exist already?
Yep, they already existed. We just gave them a boundary survey so that they knew where their boundary was, and reset some corners that that should have existed in the previous survey. So
Where does Tucker Lane come off of Carter Notch? I'm not familiar with it.
it's up past the Wildcat Inn. Further up. It's
The
on
Wildcat Inn?
or whatever. I don't know what it's called.
The Wildcat,
Talking about Eagle Mountain.
Eagle Mountain House, yes.
Oh, okay.
Yellow house. So you go way up there, and it's on the left-hand side.
This
Okay.
is, this is,
Yeah, it's way up on the left-hand side.
this other road is the one they probably know, and I,
was that Partridge or something?
Well, that's
It's gotta be further
be
back.
way-
yes, that's Partridge.
Yeah.
So it's the next one up from
Okay.
Partridge.
Oh, that's it?
Well,
That's really small print.
I don't know where I read that, I guess.
So,
So
had it,
it's beyond where Wilson Road comes in?
No, it's before that.
It's before Wilson Road?
Yeah.
Okay.
yeah, Partridge
We
Lane,
used to walk our
Eagle
dog
Mountain Golf
Tucker
Course.
to Tucker Lane.
Yeah.
It's pretty far up there until it gets, you go over and then it's flat for a little while.
Yeah.
It's right before where it
Then
gets
there's a
flat.
curve and,
Yeah,
yeah. Okay.
it's right before it's pretty flat and you got a
Okay.
river coming across up in there. It's pretty nice actually, where it gets beyond that it gets, there's a nice flat area where it's kind of open on, and the river's on the right-hand side, and it's
Yeah,
real nice.
But to the left, it goes up a hill.
Yes, it does.
Yeah. Okay.
All right, so what we're looking at then is this plot here then?
Both parcels. They were both owned by,
Okay.
one was owned by Peter Casnet and David Cushman, and then this other one was owned
Okay, and they're
by
both
David
lots of
Cushman.
record, is that not correct? Yeah.
Yeah, there was two parcels in the deed
All right,
that both of them owned together.
so you're really just looking for us to,
They'd like to.
you want to stamp it and have it approved? is that
Well, no, it doesn't get approved. Approved would be,
Acknowledged.
yeah, it would just be
Excuse me,
acknowledged for
acknowledged.
recording. It's hoping the
Acknowledged.
wording. So we're just trying to record the boundary survey so they can then, in their deed, they can reference a recorded plan.
And sell it. They're trying to sell it.
Yeah,
So
so,
Both lots are just.
It's already, the lots are registered.
Yep, the
Yeah.
lots already exist. They already existed there was a previous plan done for these, which is referenced over here. There's a plan right there. In 1966, Thaddeus Thorne Surveys did it. There's also a plan that was done by Joseph Solari in 1975. So those plans were already done and they're recorded. What we're trying to do is we just did a more formal survey of their two lots so that they knew exactly what they owned. Is what they wanted to know.
All right.
And it wasn't clear to them, the markings from 75 weren't clearly visible, so they wanted to
all right.
know.
So from perspective of next steps, what do you need to do for us before we do the acknowledgement?
Nothing, I just would need you to stamp and sign that, and I can get it recorded. What I do have is I have one single original signature copy. That's a copy in case you want to look at it, but this is This is the exact copy of that. The problem with, I would like to have you sign both, because this, I noticed, has blue ink, and they may not record it, even though it's the original. We're gonna attempt for them to record this, but if they require it to be black, the only option would be for the copy version. And so, I would really hope that they would record this original signature, but I don't know if that's possible. This, we would attempt to record this one that's signed in blue ink, but they may not do that. One of the requirements is that it be in black ink.
Okay.
And we have no way to
So,
reproduce
we
this.
probably don't have the stamp available to us this evening.
Okay.
But I think that the right way to handle this is that if we can have a vote to acknowledge it.
As a boundary survey.
As a boundary survey, and then, when we get the stamp, we can do that.
Okay.
Not necessarily at the meeting, just, it's an
Out of
administrative act.
Okay.
It has nothing to do with a subdivision or.
Nope, there's no new lots.
It's a
being
lot of
created.
record, it's
Yeah.
just simply a boundary survey,
Yes,
and,
there's two parcels. There's this one here and this one here.
Yep.
This one is, R09 lot 12, this one is R09 lot 13. They exist on the tax map today.
any objection to us moving forward on a vote to acknowledge the boundary line?
I motion to acknowledge.
I'll second that.
I have a motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we'll do that, we'll need to get the stamp and
Mhm.
sign it, and then we can contact you.
Okay, so I can leave you the copy. I prefer not to leave the original, but I would gladly meet anybody here at any moment to have that
All
signed.
right, I think we can work that out. Either David or I can sign, so.
Okay, they also are looking to do some sort of closing on the 15th, so.
December?
Yeah, this is short notice, I understand. So that's the whole thing with this whole thing was, can I possibly come in here on the 9th, get this recorded,
If
on
you
the 8th,
had
and then
pre-stamped, you would have signed it.
Yeah, but I don't have a stamp, I can't put anything on there legally, so. I'm trying not to alter the original document in any way, shape, or form except for your stamp and note of acknowledgement.
Well, the office closes at noon on Fridays, right?
Or even open tomorrow.
Why are we not open tomorrow?
No, I think you guys used to not be open.
No, we're open for half day, I can come in
Okay.
on Monday and get Julie to stamp it, sign it. I'll just get your number,
Okay.
and then maybe we can coordinate that you could be here.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
I'll reach out to Julie tomorrow just to see what.
My number is on this email.
I think you have his number
Oh,
already
in your emails,
in
yes.
the email. He's got your
I got your
telephone
number.
in the email.
Yes, it's right
It's
on
copied,
there,
yeah.
and I can give you my direct line and my cell phone number if you prefer.
So it would probably be better.
Yes, you can write it right on this. This is the.
And Julie will know what stamp to use.
It has to be the wording from the document they use, just.
Acknowledged for recording, but you can just do a general stamp
Okay.
and then write a note on the bottom, but that's why I brought an extra one in case we wanted to talk about.
Well, you know what we'll do? We won't do it until you get here.
Okay.
I'm gonna leave that with you.
Yeah. We won't do it until you get here.
Okay.
Then we can do it all together. We can sign it, you can take it.
Sure. So that's my cell phone number, and it's just, hopefully, it can just say that they're acknowledging that for recording.
So you can tell your client that we've acknowledged it, but the
Yep.
formality is simply there.
That's no problem. I'll come in Monday whenever, get it signed, then we'll take it to the registry and hopefully get it recorded. Yeah.
Appreciate that you have to put little bows on everything.
I'm just trying, they only had one copy of the original survey, and we have all of Thorne's archived material, but they're not stamped and signed, they're just a printed copy
Yep.
in the file. And that's the way that we always used to do it, because then you could just make a copy and sign it. you know, with the blueprinter.
Yeah.
We don't use the blueprinter anymore. Typically now, we would scan, like, we scan that and we can
Right.
make as many copies as you want, but it isn't an original signature. This is the only document with an original signature, so. We're attempting to record it, hopefully the registry will record it, but we'll go from there.
Well, the lesson of the story is don't die.
Yeah, or, yeah, significant planning before, right? So, you know, hindsight's 20/20, so. But I do appreciate your help, and I'm sure that, you know, the Cushmans appreciate your help too.
All right, excellent.
Yes.
We'll get to it.
Yes, thank you very much. I'm sorry about the short notice, but.
No,
Hey.
we understand. And we're pleased to be able to have got you in tonight.
Yes, thank you so much for helping me today. I'm glad it didn't have to be, you know, public notice or, you know,
Yeah.
any formal subdivision or anything like that.
We're good.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Have a good evening.
You too. Bye. Solar power. We can't avoid it.
All right.
Would you like to begin, or you want to
Sure,
talk about
is
our
every-
discussion with council, or
Yeah.
I can give a general
don't
overview. We did spend about an hour, maybe 15 minutes with council on, was that
Mostly on
on
the
Wednesday, we did that, and we spent more time on the wording for 10.2.2 on the eligible elderly household, which we determined that we don't really need to make a change, but there, as Scott indicated, you can read the darn thing the wrong way, or the right way, if you want to interpret it differently than what we intended. And so council advised us that we can adjust the language as a housekeeping activity.
Simply to clarify it, because there's a whole sentence that has an or and an and the question is, that where, on the clauses, if you were going to diagram it, as all of us did in 8th grade, then where would you put that one phrase? And it changes the interpretation of the.
We could just simply add, actually, the word "the household" after the "and" it makes sense. So it's a simple change, and we can do it as housekeeping according to council. So we can do that as part of a regular activity. I would suggest that we do that in January because we're busy tonight. And Scott, you're kind of out there.
This is the latest one.
Yep.
Does that include that?
No, that's different.
They flipped the agenda, Chris.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
We wanted to talk about the fact that we asked council for two
issues.
Two issues. One that we talked about last meeting, and wanted to get clarification on that. And the other is on the solar part. And I think
They read it through and said, well, they had some questions which we helped to clarify. And I think the bottom line was, he said, you know, the way it's written is fine. There wasn't any legal traps in it. They did have some questions about you, and it's, I think the two things that are probably worth talking about is down on the definitions of both 7, the community scale solar energy system, and 8, accessory use. As to, is this exactly the way we want it? Is it going to achieve what we're headed for? And as Bill, I think, very well explained earlier, that the community scale is really designed for a couple of situations. One would be if you have a residence that the angle of the roof is not conducive for capturing sunlight, and the lot is not such that there is any area in the lot that would be oriented correctly and have enough exposure to the sun to make solar energy a system to make it worthwhile. But then, so this would be a possibility for them if they join together with other people, perhaps in the community around them, or somebody, say 2 or 3 people did have a better exposure, that they might be able to just join together, put together a community solar array, and then they all would own it, and they would all then get the energy credits from it.
How that works in reality, we have no idea.
Right.
But the idea of it, yeah.
That's,
I know when we discussed this a long time ago, we had a big meeting years ago, where the solar panels would go here to the town. And it had to go here on this roof and on the highway department roof, because of the way it was situated. It could not be there at the library, which I think would be very obvious, because of the way the solar panels were. And I think this was discussed, and I think it was in Tamworth, if I'm not mistaken. I can't remember the lady's name, Dr. Jackson, I think. She was all for this, but she couldn't have it in her house because of the way her roof was situated. I mean, and that does pose a problem. And, but then you get to the point where, you know, then you start to put solar arrays on the ground, and how really does that, you know, how much, well, Scottsdale a long time ago, Mount Washington Valley, so Jackson's just in a fog here, so it doesn't really matter. So, but you have to rely on who's ever putting the panels in to be honest with you, to tell you whether you can have them or not. And, I don't know where I was going with that, but that's all
Yeah, because I
right.
know Kevin had said that these guys that install them, they work all that out. I mean, where they're gonna place. I think the issue of community, I think that word is somewhat confusing to people, because that's where I think Jerry was talking about. When you see the word community, then you think of the town or a larger system, because we don't use the word accessory use next to the word community. So you
we could
apply
put
that by
in.
it.
We could put it in.
Because I think that would clarify an issue when somebody says community. It means like, it is for, it's, you kind of do it when you say it has to be bill credits and shared by one or two residents.
Group, neighbors.
But it's like the group that's above you, that condo.
Black Mountain Meadows.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
you can
like
say-
your condos, where, or Wentworth.
That came in, right.
And so you have an organization already. It could be a homeowners association. And where there is some organization there, and then they just decide, okay, we have this one space that we can put a fair number of panels in, and then everybody can
Sure.
benefit from it.
You could do it like at Eagle Brook or Mirror Lake.
Yeah.
What if we called it a multi-residence solar array?
Multi-resident, well, you also want it, if businesses want to do it too.
I think if you just put accessory use
If
next
we
to
put
it.
accessory use next to it, does that get you in the
To
right
me, it
place?
does, it means you can't just do it. You have to be doing it for some purpose, like,
Right, and accessory in that.
you
that
define
have to
that
have a-
clearly.
Some sort of collaborative makes sense, which could be businesses or
Yeah,
neighborhoods, I don't know.
there's a thesaurus.
Okay, but if you do say accessory use is defined on 17.2.8.
And that was the other question. I was wanting to ask with Dick, when he was the one who proposed that, if he could explain a little bit more what his thinking on that was.
On what?
On the 150% of the yearly.
Dick, you're on. The question that's been directed toward you is regarding the 150% of the yearly electrical demand, the thing that you proposed,
At
that
the
we've
listening
included in here. If you could provide more context on it, do you have any more detail on it that you could share with us?
No, I just thought it answered a lot of the, or some of the questions that were coming up on scale and volume that people were concerned about. And I think that 150% of your current usage in a residential application will take care of, future expansion of your electrical usage and kind of keep up with it. And if it doesn't, and you end up wanting way more, yes, then I think you'll write new words into the ordinance and be able to expand it. I don't know what technologies are going to go or where technologies are going to go, but I think it's going to be smaller and smaller, not necessarily bigger. I think we'll get more power out of less area. So I think if we put in the 150 now, it kind of restricts, the number of panels that a ground array may want to contemplate. And then, in the future, if the needs go up, or, then we can make an adjustment. I just think it works for now and kind of puts a limit on the volume of collector that's out there, so that people don't want to see too much of an array in somebody's backyard, or it might be right in their side yard. So that's where I got the 150% from. Also, I didn't come up with it. In my readings, I have to give credit to somebody. I can find them again, but they had come up with that as a solution.
Okay.
In
fact, the lawyer said the same thing, have it 150 now, and then as things go in the future, if you have people who, before they put the solar in, had a regular furnace, and now they have heat pumps, and they had an ordinary car before, and now they switch over to an electric car, and then there's 3 members of the family with electric cars, that all of a sudden their electric needs are much higher than what they had before. That, again, maybe if those situations start to arise, that we can change the wording to accommodate that.
Yeah,
I think that in the application, if you allow for, okay, we're going to put in a solar array this big, we're going to put in a heat pump or a mini split or a hybrid hot water heater or electric baseboard heat or whatever, and you can quantify that out as part of the application, I think that would be applicable.
Yeah, I guess my question is by saying the way it's expressed that it has to be in the previous year, whether or not that ends up creating a difficulty relative to justifying what you're describing. Because I would think that, for example, if you're doing this and you say, okay, I'm gonna install a heat pump, and but I'm also gonna do the solar array, but I'm not gonna do both at the same time, but I did the one 2 months before the other, I'm not gonna have a yearly use to look back at for an application. I'm only gonna have, probably because I put it in the summer, I don't have any data that I'm gonna have on how much the heat pump's gonna use, except an estimate based on how much fossil fuel I use compared to what the heat pump is gonna generate. But it is calculable. And so I guess the question I have is whether or not we should allow for information to be available for this determination that could be for concurrent installation. Or somebody buys their 2 Teslas and then puts in the solar array. Oh, by the way, I've got another plate. We gotta look at definitions on 17.2.1 because we don't talk at all about EVs or charging EVs. It says it has to only be for heat, light, and heat, light, and water heating.
Right. So their devices have the purpose which is to drive generation or storage, generation of electricity from sunlight, or collection, storage, and distribution of solar energy for space heating, cooling, or daylight, or water heating. Those are other ways that solar energy is used. We all think of it as a photovoltaic system, which is what almost all of this pertains to. But there are also methods for taking sunlight and using it directly as heat, for heating, or for cooling.
Greenhouse. Yeah.
Right, for daylight or interior.
Okay, so you're saying that the or is sufficiently,
Yeah, we'll cover that.
we'll cover that because the EVs would be in the first part, is to provide for generation or storage of electricity from sunlight.
Yeah,
Okay,
of generation or storage of
all right.
electricity.
But aren't you you're distributing it when you charge your car? You're not storing it for your car.
You're generating it,
It says for generation or storage.
Well, your car is storing, if you,
Right, but if I plug my car into the wall right now, I'm storing it in the car,
Right.
but I'm pulling it out of my house.
right.
right.
I'm distributing my power too. I'm just saying that,
And your point,
because the second one said distribution of solar energy. The first is the solar panel system is to store the electricity, but then you distribute it to other sources.
No, the solar panel collects the energy,
Right.
and then if you're off the grid, then you've got batteries that
Right.
you store it in, and then use that later. But if you're attached to the grid, like with net metering, then you're in a sense using the grid for your storage.
Right. Okay.
Because during the day, you make more electricity than you're pulling out. But then at night, you need it back again.
yeah, the or gets you there.
And we're figuring the usage too, lots of times as things get, like heat pumps, as they get older, they use more energy. So,
Yeah, but I was looking at, we're not including other kinds of things that you might charge, and the point is that you don't really need to include them if you defined in the definition, which I failed to see, but it's that the purpose of which is to provide for generation or storage of electricity from sunlight, period. And then that covers anything that
encompasses it all.
is a battery of any kind, including your fleet of buses or whatever. All right, I'm good on that. But the question around accessory use, if you put that on the community scale solar energy system, that again suggests that you have 150% as your basis for the primary use. And again, somebody says, oh, it's too much. I think like Jerry was saying, it's are you really being too liberal here? By doing that in the community calculation, if you just simply use it as an accessory use deal. And
Right, so if you had 5 houses that were banding together, then you get the,
Average.
no, you just get the total amount that they've used in the
Yeah.
last year.
yeah,
Add it all up, and that's as big as that, and multiply that 1.5, and that's the maximum array you can put,
Yeah.
as long as it's less than 5 acres.
so then
What if I were a developer and I wanted to, put up 10 lots on a piece of land that was subdivided, and as part of that development, I wanted to put up, a community or solar array to provide power for those lots. There would be no history whatsoever there. So does it mean that someone that builds a house, do they need to wait a year after they've built the house to then put in solar?
I think they have,
I think you get somebody that knows what they're talking about to give an estimate.
Right.
And you
would-
may be close, you may be over, you may be under, but it's.
wouldn't that be something that we'd love to give to our ZBA folks?
Now,
On a new installation, I've had to do it more for commercial, but not for residential, but you can do it for the residential. You can go right through the blueprint and get a calculation of what the energy draw will be. In other words, there's so many outlets, so many lights. They're going to do electric hot water. They're going to do an electric dryer, electric range. These all have, finite numbers attached to them, so that if you did a 10-unit development with this, say that one house, model house style, you can figure it out. It would be right there on paper in front of you.
So,
And then you can calculate that in to your 150%.
So, yeah, but wouldn't it be better then for us to do something that says more than 150% of the estimated yearly electrical demand?
yeah.
Calculate.
calculate,
It's a calculation.
okay. And the
Okay,
calculation would work
and
whether-
instead of saying that calculated yearly electrical demand, instead of
Estimated.
to be used by the primary use for installation of the solar energy system.
Because that,
Instead of the previous year.
right.
The previous year, we could say the annual use, estimated
Calculated.
or calculated annual use.
Because that could play for a current home that's gonna buy a Tesla
Right.
or gonna install something in the future,
Yeah.
they can factor.
I mean, the cost consideration of installing one of these things is going to be a limiting factor for most of us.
And life expectancy.
Well, that too, yes. It's like, if you're gonna open up one of these deals, you're looking at 15 grand and the larger it gets, the more expensive it is. And to build excess capacity with a 10-year window on it.
Okay, that's much cleaner.
Yeah.
So, let me make sure I have this. The energy system is not an accessory use if the system provides annually more than 150% of the calculated annual electric demand of the primary use.
Mhm.
Period.
Period.
So much easier.
Ooh.
We just made it simple.
Wow. Uh-oh. Somebody's gonna be unhappy with us.
Why?
No, it's good.
Things okay with that.
He thought we were the more we simplify things, we're taking things out.
Well, no, I think this is, when you said calculated, getting rid of the word estimate,
Yes,
that's a definite.
that's a definite.
All right.
Here's the calculated number. Let's go.
Exactly.
What do you think, Dick?
Yep.
You good?
I think it's in my code books, and the NFPA code books, which I go to I have to do a code course every 3 years. But anyway, how you do that calculation is in there. And it's, it's all part of the electrical codes. So I really think that as a wording, it should be calculation, because
Yes.
that's what it is.
Great.
It's almost science.
Whoa. Let's not go there.
Works for me.
Who believes that stuff anymore?
Calculation refers to,
And you guys don't know
estimated
how
refers
long
to
my
what
dog
might happen.
takes showers when you
I
talk
like
about
estimated.
calculating.
Hey, I put in a shut-off in the cellar, and it worked.
With a timer.
No, I just go down cellar. When Jess was in the shower for more than 20 minutes, I go down cellar and turn off the cellar. And I heard this little squeal, and
Freeze them out.
she get out of the shower.
I like that.
It works. Believe me.
I can't wait for April Fool's Day now.
And
Okay.
years later, I
Moving on.
told her about
We
it.
got this, we killed this.
And it was good for a laugh. We all laughed about it. So believe me, it won't have any lasting negative repercussions.
Okay, so a question I have around the solar energy system was that, or the solar photovoltaic system. We are focused on that, and we're saying that we allow solar photovoltaic systems. Blah, blah, blah. Does that mean, because we don't mention it, that we're going to disallow concentrated solar power systems?
What are concentrated solar power systems?
Pardon?
What are they?
That's where you get mirrors out and you concentrate the light because
You've
you,
been doing too much background reading.
yeah. For example, in our wonderful environment where it's difficult to properly set an array, you might then use panels to concentrate the light into a single focus. I'm sure you saw this when you watched your Superman cartoon, comics when you were a kid. And the power is generated by the focusing
Of the beam. Yep.
beam into a collector. And there are units that are out there. We don't mention them, and I guess I'm asking the crazy question that by not mentioning them, we don't allow them.
I
Big
think-
mirror on the top of the mountain, you focus down.
I would think just the opposite, that we don't mention it, that we don't preclude it at all. I mean, there are places in Europe where they have big mirrors on the top of the mountain, they shine it on the valley. What's the problem with that? I don't know.
Okay, we can
Yeah,
get around
I think it
that.
has to do with the lighting limits that we're putting on illumination on.
Well, yeah, but that's another issue.
I'm just asking the question. I'm throwing
Okay,
it out.
Rather than
before
burn your
the
retinas
words, we
if
can
you look
take
at it.
care of that.
All right, what's that?
Photovoltaic system is convert solar energy directly into electricity, the primary components of which are, but not limited to, solar panels, not da-da-da-da-da.
Yeah, but there's that ambiguity.
Because you could have, in addition to, you would have your solar panels, you would have to be mounted, you'd have to have an inverter, you'd have to wire it.
Mhm.
Those would all be part of it.
Yeah.
But then if you have extra mirrors and a few other things, then it's, okay, but it includes these, but it's not limited to those.
I mean, if it provides more efficiency, I don't know why it
I don't
wouldn't
think it'd be
be.
any problem.
No.
Okay, I'll put a mirror next to your house.
Well-
Yeah.
And I could parade all the time in front of the mirror. That's great. I like that.
All right, I just asked the question because I ran into it. It was like, it's not likely that it's gonna be an issue for us here because of the fact that we have cloud cover here as much of the time as we do, but,
No, you still get electricity, you still get power even if there's cloud.
Yeah.
And some places you can get it with moonlight, but we don't register any moonlight.
Maybe tonight.
I'll check it tomorrow,
What's
So,
once the moon gets removed.
All right, okay, can we get down in the weeds maybe? 17.3.2, in the first sentence, I know you capitalized solar energy system most everywhere except in the first sentence of 17.3.2.
17, who?
17.3.2,
Yep,
for the proposed solar energy system, it's not in caps.
okay.
You did it on the second part of the sentence, but not in the first part.
Are you talking about emergency access?
No, we're just
No.
talking about the fact
In
that,
addition to the drawing on the building permit application for the proposed solar energy system, showing its location on the lot, plans should be included for screening.
Where are you reading that from?
Seven.
all he wants is that any, we have the convention that any term that is defined, that when it occurs within the text,
Okay.
it has to be
Okay.
capitalized.
so I don't want to bring this up, but I do kind of agree with the public opinion. Number 5, on 17.3, the word reasonable. I don't know how we can define that, but I think
Which one are you?
reasonable, the word reasonable,
He's
undefined.
What page are we on now?
It's not a page, it's
17.3, general regulations, item 5.
Okay,
Reasonable measures to minimize glare as viewed from adjacent properties and roads shall be taken. And we talked about this with council and whether or not we could actually put some measures in or make some determination. I spent a good part of a couple hours this morning to take a look at definitions of glare and read a 27-page paper on it, which was very interesting. I learned a whole new word and about reflectivity and all kinds of good things. And there is the ability to have more specificity for glare. But the point of the 27-page paper is that the average installation has less reflectivity than a field of grass.
grass doesn't light up though.
Neither does a solar panel.
It's all now.
Based on the way it works, the way the grid works is that a black asphalt tile is the only thing that has less reflectivity than a solar panel. I mean, grass, snow, rocks, trees, pine trees have more reflectivity than a solar panel that is properly, and here's the deal, it's got to be, it has to be a panel that has the appropriate diffusion of light.
Okay.
And everybody who manufactures them right now is pretty much required to do that.
Yeah, it was in one of the models, I think, with that first model that we used, that said that sometimes they talk about glare, but the way the industry has gone up to the point when that model was written is that they're pretty much take care of the glare situation.
So why do we have it?
Well, question is whether or not somebody comes in with something that's non-standard. Or somebody does and here's where it is not an issue, and that is because you said we're going to allow concentrated solar power systems. And if you don't disallow them, then you have to have the glare factor in here.
How about something along industry standards? Meaning, industry standard, blah, blah, blah. Complying with industry standards?
What I thought would be useful,
All right.
all right, and jury's comments aside, but what I thought would be useful would be that, would it be possible to add glare considerations into the application? In other words, either put something into in addition to the drawing on the building permit application, they have to have a screening guideline and have to identify that they have adequately addressed glare. And for most, it's going to be, the panels are, meet the current standard.
Maybe that's
So
what
you-
our current standard there then.
Yeah, but the current standard is the current standard for panels. And again, if there are multiple ways of doing this, if we're going to allow for other kinds of arrays other than panels, then, and that's where you get into the squirrely stuff.
Okay.
So you're saying add it to number 4?
Well, we could either add it to number 4, or you could include it in 2, and say that
Okay, there's never been a numbering change here. It says 1, 2, 3, 4, 3. 4. There's 2 3s and 2 4s.
Yeah,
Where?
no, it's all of ours, no, all of ours are wrong.
Okay.
There's 2 3s
Oh, shoot,
and 2 4s.
I can't count.
So it is hard for.
What do you think?
I think you could put it with the building permit, because then you would have all the specs. Yeah.
We talk about taking glare out.
Well, I'm not sure that we want to take it out, but if
If
we,
they, like you said, if they use mirrors, we don't know what the future brings.
yes, I'm not suggesting that we take it out.
No.
What I'm suggesting is that we add the piece of information into the building permit so that it's addressed there
I see what you're saying.
in terms of data collection, so that when Kevin's looking at this, instead of just simply, as Jerry's saying, reasonable, or you're saying reasonable, it's like, well, it's reasonable. Well, you need to provide data that you've made an effort to look at what the glare considerations are, and you're providing that as part of your application. Right?
Which could include somebody saying that my panels meet industry standards for lack of glare.
Yeah.
Correct.
I didn't buy the cheap ones.
Right.
Right.
I get it.
That, or I didn't get ones from that installation that was done 20 years ago,
I borrowed
and
those.
that I borrowed, I'm porting it, and I'm gonna install it in my backyard.
But then
Well,
that,
that doesn't happen, does it?
Jesus.
Okay, what was the wording you used? Give me some, what do we want,
That, for,
what
in
do they
the,
include?
Well,
Plan-
it was put into the building permit
yeah, to say that they would
Yeah, I
need
know.
to,
that could include,
Meeting industry
product
standards.
standards or something.
yeah, hang on.
Could include product meeting industry standards for glare.
That, and I thought the recommendation I made, I made notes on this, reference that they, as part of the building permit application, they need to reference the glare component of the installation.
Of the products, panels.
Yeah, they need to identify
Glare reduction?
the other glare reduction. intended for the implementation.
I would guess that each panel has some sort of an amount of glare provided or something or the opposite of that.
Right, because as they say, that the whole point of the panel is to collect as much
Right.
light that you want. You don't want to scatter it out.
Specifications of the panel regarding glare, I don't know.
And the roof mounts, you're not gonna really have that issue with roof mounted, it's more the
Right.
ground mounted ones you potentially could have.
It's more likely in the ground mount. All the problems are more likely in the ground mount. So almost everything that we're talking about is more likely in that instance as a problem because most roof mounts are fairly standard.
Face off.
Yeah.
If in what you read, Bill, the glare is, you know, so relatively low, or compared to stuff we don't worry about, even with bad panels, is there really a glare issue?
There isn't, but we want this to pass.
And you could, a lot of the commentary that we've been hearing has been concern about, you know, reasonable, whatever, glare, reasonable impact on, you know, neighbors and such. And so how much of this has been that we're not making this tight enough?
So, yeah,
I've heard more. I wasn't at the meeting, unfortunately.
well, we could get rid of the word reasonable.
I thought industry standard. That's a good idea.
Just
Industry standards to minimize glare should be maintained.
It does get squirrely in the margins, but there's something that you simply can't define, you know, in the way that you might want to. And at least if you have reasonable, that is something. If someone's doing something egregious, then you're not going to have a problem shutting it down.
well, we could, if we wanted to be really smart about this, we could say, for example, as was suggested by John when we were talking to council, that we could put an albedo factor of 0.33%. And that would, that's a very specific measurement. And albedo is the word that apparently they use for this reflectivity. I learned a new word. And obviously mirrors have a factor of 1, and a black pitch has 0. 0.33 would be something less than half. And that was what I think he was talking about. There was an actual percentage number that was in one of the guides, models. But the fact is that in this 27-page paper, which I did make copies of to both Scott and Sarah today, that they could look at. And I'm not my high school physics is a long time ago. But taking a look at the information that was provided and the angles and the diffusion patterns that are set into the standard build, the reflectivity is below the 0.33. And it's not necessary to identify it. So I guess, and it may be better after some time. 5 years ago, the panels were closer to 0.5. And so, and part of the reason that they've improved has been because of the federal government has said that you can't have an installation within X miles of an airport that has a factor an albedo factor of something, whatever. And so there are federal standards that have been shrinking the level of glare that's possible. If you're going to install a thing in certain places. So I guess if we address it, but I think it's a concern. I think I have a concern about it, and not having read this paper. Now I read the paper, I go, oh yeah, okay, I'm informed now. It's not a big deal. But I think if we're going to get this passed through folks to vote on this, they're going to say, did you think about glare?
Right.
And we should say, yeah, we're
And
thinking.
so that albedo factor, is that something that the panel is rated, or is that more circumstantial, based on the installation and the direction and all?
It's a measurement.
Is it something we would
Yeah.
measure after the installation, or is it?
I think it's a measurement of the panel.
It's a measurement of the panel.
It's a measurement of the panel, and yes, but you are right. You can have the placement could also reduce the number depending on how it's mounted.
About something,
No, I just meant that if it's a rating on the panel, then it's very easy to, for the homeowner to basically prove that that's what they have for us to,
Yes, and so I think the right answer is to say that they need to provide information relative to the glare factor of the panels that are going to be installed.
how about reasonable measures to minimize glare based on industry standards? So that you could use both reasonable and industry standards? Because I believe that they manufacture these panels to certain standards.
Yes. I think just getting rid of the word of reasonable is fine.
Or just,
Measures.
yeah, I think you could use both, but fine,
Or you could say industry measures, or industry, identify it as something associated with what the industry uses as a measure to minimize glare.
And I would guess that those standards change over time,
Yeah.
which would, as more and more people involved, that those standards would change.
Yeah, part of the reason that the glare factors have reduced is because the efficiency of the panels to collect has increased. And because the more reflectivity there is, the less conversion of sunlight to electricity that you get. So that, I mean, it's obviously trending that way.
So what's the best way to word that as to what we want to add into the general regulations where we're saying what has to go on the building permit application? Because we want the, where it is, the screening plan, and then also information relative, you said relative to the glare factor, but into minimizing glare factor, or what, or industry standards? How's this all gonna fit? I know it's hard to do.
Yeah, I know you were looking for actual words.
Yeah.
What
Can we
about,
just say it has
what about
has to
current
be
current industry standards to minimize glare should be maintained?
Hold on, folks,
That's a good one.
I think you get the
Yeah,
idea.
I mean,
Something
it's,
that
this
could
is
be
what we've
worked
been
on.
talking about.
It's not working very
Yeah.
well right now.
So
My brain isn't even working right now.
I'm having a
Current
difficult time
industry
tonight.
I
standards.
think that's something that you could work on to get it right.
Minimize
And
glare.
we can get out of here.
All right. I think we've.
Dick, no hat, just
Well,
no earphones?
Not even start, because I got a few more
we
questions.
got
on
more
this.
stuff.
Oh, he's gonna, oh, Jesus.
I got more questions on this.
All right. But nitpicky stuff. On all of 17.6, you use, we use capitalized word system instead of solar energy systems all the way through.
Where are you?
Okay, I'll
17.6.
just make a note to check.
And so, yeah, so tracking solar energy system shall have no portion of a solar energy system may.
Yeah, all right, I can check the cap.
That's
not
just,
a
that's
problem.
nitpicky.
Right.
So, and Mike, I guess the question I had on the community scale solar energy system is whether or not the second item, 17.62, the solar energy system shall have reasonably effective visual screening for public ways and neighboring commercial residential uses based on the view sheds, contours of the land and abutting land uses. Is that, we already have in 17.3, in 17 let's see. Do we not ask for this already in the general requirement?
It's not in the general requirement.
And why wouldn't we put that in the general requirement as opposed to just the community scale?
Well, it's already in that second one.
It's in
Measures to
ground-
minimize glare as viewed from adjacent property owners.
It's in the ground mounted, it's in the ground mounted number 3.
Well,
It's a little bit repetitive.
yeah, because the building permit section, 17.3.2, does say the plan should include all screening for proposed ground mounted systems from abutting properties and adjacent right of ways.
Yeah.
So you kind of,
It's in the plan, but we want, so
Right,
what we're
so,
doing is that we give the regulation, it's gotta be screened, and then when we're making an application, they've gotta show that they are, we're just
right,
reiterating that it needs to be checked.
okay. So, so we do in 17.5.3, we do it for ground mounted solar energy systems, and then we're saying the same thing here
For
for
community scale.
community scale. And I guess my question was, why wouldn't we make that a general regulation? And then not have to specify it twice?
Because it's hard to screen your roof mount.
it only applies to those two.
It only applies to ground mounts. Because you can't have trees screening your roof mount because you won't get too much shade,
Okay, so why wouldn't the wording be comparable in both?
is it not?
I think you make the argument that a community system is likely to be larger, and therefore something that might need more screening.
Yeah, but for the community one, it has more teeth in it.
Public
And so the question is, do we not want the same level of scrutiny in both instances?
It's easy enough to add it up there.
Yeah, that's all I'm asking.
Okay.
Just, to me, it seems like it ought.
I mean, I say in principle that, it ought to be mostly the same. It's just, again, that the community one is likely to be a larger system, and so any issue in regards to, poor or lack of screening is likely to be a larger issue. And of the two, I think it's more important that the community be, that we have something in there for the community one, but I think I would agree that probably better just to make them the same.
I think if they're the same, then we get away from the issue of when it's in my backyard.
Right.
I want the same level of scrutiny as whether it's in your backyard or in the general areas of the village, for example.
And I didn't quite hear, did you decide that it should not be in the general regulations?
We decided it shouldn't be in the general regulations because it doesn't apply to roof mounted.
Okay. I mean, it does say ground mounted in the general regulations, so you could just continue that. I don't think it hurts to have it in the other sections, but.
No, well, what's in the general regulations is asking to have this information in the building permit application.
Yep.
Okay?
Yeah, no, I think we're good, but if we get comparable language in both, then we're
Yeah.
good?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
What else?
The other question I had was on access, on the community scale stuff.
Yep.
And we have something called, here, just 17.66. Land clearing shall be limited to what is necessary for the installation and operations of the solar energy system and to ensure sufficient all-season access to the solar resource given the topography of the land. And I just wondered about what that means. What does all-season access mean to that?
So that if there's a problem with the system, you can get in there and take care of it.
Yeah, but is that a road, or is that getting onto your snowmobile, or?
It's whatever access you need to get in there. That's why it's not road.
Yeah. But access.
Well, if you look at the towers on Black Mountain, they require a snowmobile or a snowcat to access during the winter. You couldn't get up there during the winter, you know, in a truck, but you can during the summer. So there's a situation where, you know, radio towers at least.
Yeah, I wondered if it was just too loose, or it's understood.
I think it's pretty clear.
I think it's
Well,
understood.
Again, I'm asking a question,
Yeah.
I'm asking
I
the
think
same kind
it's
of question I think I hear Jerry
Because you
asking.
don't want to have require it to be a road if the road is going to be more than you need.
Right.
But you might have to make sure you maintain a trail or something like that to get in there. But I think that's pretty clear, personally, whatever.
I mean, we just had a new transformer put on our land, and the restriction was, can we get there with a backhoe or heavy equipment? That's all they counted. They didn't need a road.
Right.
They just wanted the area cleared
Yeah.
so that a backhoe or other heavy digger could get in.
And so all I'm asking is just putting sufficient all-season access,
I think that's fine.
sufficient,
I think so.
Yeah.
that's all.
Good.
I'm devil advocating.
That's fine.
I'm gonna shut up now.
Can I double advocate?
Go.
But this again, I think we've talked about this before about the abandoned.
Oh, we
Second.
changed that. We had said solar panels to be, we said to be recycled. And the
Right.
lawyer said, you know, it'd probably be better to have it, the words he proposed was safely and appropriately disposed of.
But, and I don't know if this is who's gonna monitor that?
Nobody.
Selectmen, the building inspector, or whoever's,
I mean, that's fine to have it in there, I mean, I like.
Well,
We did discuss this, and
Yeah.
the point is that you can put in something into your code that you assume is something you want somebody to do, and you shouldn't put it in with the idea that you're not gonna be able to,
So we could do it as a, so if somebody complained to the select board, that this house is gone, this house is empty, and this ugly thing is sitting there for a year.
yeah,
In theory, they would have the power
that would give them the
Force-
authority to do
to
something.
do something. Otherwise, we're not gonna monitor it.
Just the same way we have authority to regulate how fast you drive down Carter Notch
I don't-
Road, but we don't always check to see whether you're going 35
Nate's out
miles
there
an
all
hour.
the time. Nate's out there
Talking
all the
about
time.
that, I also have a question on that,
Okay.
abandoned or whatever you wanna call it for 6 months.
Again, and I-
What happens to the people that go
even
to
if
Florida for 6 months? You can tell them they're abandoning their property?
Easy to enforce, most of the time, you still can have situations where it will, be handy to have. You got a 5-acre array and you got weeds growing up through it, it's clearly abandoned, at least we have something that we can work with.
But that's a good point.
In the more convenient.
Say that again,
Suppose somebody goes to Florida for 6 months. We have on here 6 months, so they call it you abandon your place if you've gone for 6 months.
oh, really?
That's what it says up here.
No,
Discontinued on more than 6 months.
No, that's not what it says.
It does so. Abandoned
if
If
it's
operations-
abandoned, if the, but if
or
they're,
discontinued for more than 6 months without written consent of the
So you're gonna
municipality.
shut off your solar system?
Read what it says about decommissioning.
Where is this? What number?
It's the last one.
It's the last one,
17.1.
6, it's 1736. Solar energy systems shall be deemed to be abandoned if operations have discontinued for
Yeah.
more than 6 months.
But how do you know if it's been discontinued or not? If somebody goes to Florida, they might
then
not
they
know
come
that
back
they're-
and they use it.
What?
Then they come back and they use it. They haven't abandoned the house.
If they're paying taxes on their property, I think they haven't abandoned it. It's if they, just walked out and,
But that's not written in here. Abandoned operations are discontinued for more than 6 months without written consent of the municipality, which means the selectmen, such as for the reason beyond the control of the owner and appropriate. Abandoned system will be removed, the solar panel recycled, and da-da-da-da, all the rest of that stuff.
Oh, you're reading the old one,
Am I reading the old one?
right? Because you got rid of the word recycle. right?
Yes, we did.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're reading the old one.
You're not looking, you have a new one here if you want a new one.
I thought I had the one I was reading.
Well, there's not that many changes made to it.
No, I don't think the abandoned system language has
It's
changed.
over on the second page. Look at it.
Okay, so I have it right here. You guys look at the other one.
Because what you were just reading is the version that I have.
No.
And we changed it from 15 to 20 feet too, right?
15,
So my issue is just monitoring.
height?
So if we're gonna do
Yeah.
that was
It's there.
from the listening session.
That's what I thought, yeah.
So
We
there was
talked to the
someone who
legal
said
guys
that,
and
yes,
they
the
said,
tracking
"Okay."
system
No, I see.
he
I
checked on, and it could be
It's
as
that
tall
question that
as
came up again, because it came up in the.
17, 19 feet.
Yeah, it'd be nice to still leave it 15.
And the right answer is,
I
we
can't
should
imagine
have
20,
something
that's-
available
that's
to us in the
I
regulation
looked at two
that in the
systems,
event
one
that
with
someone
4
does
the other day,
do an
I mean,
abandonment,
acres.
that we
Right.
can
Nothing
go
was
and,
that tall.
and ask them to dispose
The
of.
tracking,
Not necessarily that we're going
He was
to
talking about
actively
a
go
double, was
around.
it a double?
Think
panel
about
or something,
the
or
30,
20 feet.
well, you see, the
rentals,
tracking systems, I've seen some pretty
you know,
tall tracking systems.
Yeah.
we aren't actively looking at
That
that,
is pretty
but we
high.
put it in the regulation
Yeah.
with the idea that is what we want to have happen. And they recommended that we not be afraid to put something in that may be onerous to enforce.
I just have a question, because I don't understand this. Are you done?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. 17.4.1. The height solar energy systems may exceed the zoning district height limits by up to 10 feet, but not extend beyond the edge of the roof peak. So that would have to mean that the roof it's being put on is already above the height limits.
Right,
This is a tricky one. This is what this is intended, because an installation on a roof, a pitched roof, normally has to be aligned with the pitch of the roof,
Mhm.
okay? But if you have a flat roof building, and this was, I think, where we got into this, is that if you have a flat roof building, then
You're
you
gonna tilt
you
to
need
hit
to
the
pitch,
sun.
you may need to pitch the panels in order to collect the sun, and therefore, in that instance, it can't exceed the height limit, and it can't be more than 10 feet above the roof itself.
Oh, okay, 'cause
So
I,
it's the only place where it makes sense. I read that, and I did the same thing you did. It's like, what sneaky thing did Sarah put in? And it's like, okay, what sneaky thing Sarah put in was, we talked about a height limitation, and on a pitched roof, you may have some adjustment between the solar panels. You may, it'd be rare, but you'd have some potentially if you had depending on the pitch of the roof, there may be some adjustment in the panel, but generally the panels are flush with the pitch.
yeah.
And so, by saying that it may not extend above the highest point on a pitched roof is saying something that we wanted to say anyway, but the other one, the 10 feet, allows for an installation on a flat roof. But it can't exceed the height limit, 35 feet, which it is for most, and also it can't be more than
Well, yeah, it can.
10 feet above the highest point, or no, wait a minute, no,
No, 10 feet, you can go up above the height limit, you can exceed the height limit by 10 feet.
So it'd be
Okay,
45
But
feet.
not above the peak.
but not extend above the peak,
But on a
yeah.
flat roof,
But
you
what-
wouldn't have it.
On a pitch
But
roof.
also, okay, take for example, this is really weird, the baseball dugout down there, okay? It's a flat roof,
Mhm.
okay? So that's already height, and then you put another 35 feet above that, then you're getting up to 45 feet in height.
No, the building, the height rule in this town is, for a
35
flat
feet.
roof is 35 feet.
35 feet.
So you're saying you
Then
can't
another
go,
10 feet, and
it's
then you're
25
up to
feet,
45 feet.
right.
That's gonna look like hell.
Except the building code doesn't allow you to do that.
Why not?
Because you can't.
It doesn't allow you to do that on a ceiling, on a roof installation. It doesn't allow you, the building code does not allow it.
You can only go 35 feet, but it says here you go 10 feet higher
No,
than
the
that.
building code's not our zoning ordinance. The building code says that when you do a roof installation, it has to be with the pitch of the roof.
That the roof is flat.
Yeah, it's a flat roof. what's
It's a
the-
flat roof.
All right, so show me how you're gonna put that panel on that building where you can put 45 feet.
Because you already have, well, whatever the height of the dugout is down there, I don't know, you can put it in a shed in your house if you wanted to.
All
So,
right, how are you going to put this panel, which is a single piece? It has to be a single piece, it has to be flat, it has to be rectangular, and how are you going to make it go 45 feet high?
No, she's not saying the panel's gonna go 45
No.
feet. The building code for a flat roof in this town,
Yeah,
Anyway,
how high can you go with a flat roof?
35 feet.
35 feet. So I have a 35-foot roof, right? My house.
Yeah.
And this now allows me to go
45 feet.
to it, that's where she's getting the 45. So on the panel, I can go to 45 feet with the panel, not my roof,
Right.
just the panel.
But you still can't go above the peak of the roof.
It's flat, doesn't have
That's
a
flat,
peak.
so it doesn't have a peak, but it can go
But-
10 feet.
Right.
Wow, it is a little confusing.
So you could have a 45-foot tall outhouse.
Right.
All right,
Why would
would it
you
be
want
better
allow
to
a solar panel
split?
on the top of a 35-foot high flat house? I mean, it would look like the Conway Sun.
yes,
so-
it would.
Well, but that would be injurious to the look of the town.
Yep.
The reality is,
I mean, it'd be like putting,
Yeah,
The-
only one being built right now that I know of, and I don't
You
understand.
don't build flat roof houses up here.
There's one on Sugar Lane.
There is one up
Oh,
on,
there is one
Oh,
on Chitty Hill
Sugar
Lane,
Lane.
yeah.
there is one up on the ridge.
25 years.
Scott,
What?
go ahead.
Oh, I was just saying, you know, in 10 to 25 years, you might be building flat roof houses around here.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
with climate change.
There's climate changing.
Do you think we'll change the zoning ordinance between now and then?
Or the
Oh,
bond
probably.
Who's gonna be
I was
here?
joking.
Right.
I mean, yeah, I mean, we don't have a lot of flat roofs, but if I had a flat roof house, why would I be limited to not being able to put solar panels on the
Yeah.
roof?
well, it would be ugly, first of all.
My problem.
I mean, the point around a solar installation on a flat roof is you want it as flat as you can get it.
Yeah, I understand.
And so the possibility of doing a pitch on that would be simply to allow for snow
Yeah,
to
yeah,
shed
yeah.
from the pitch.
But-
So yes, to your point, you would have a 35-foot home with a flat roof, and it could have a 10-foot extension on top, like that sits like this, that's intended to allow for the snow to go up there. That's what that says, yes.
Okay, and the second question I have is emergency access, you know, fall fire codes and everything else, access to the roof, to the panels and before it burns and all ventilation and smoke and all the rest of that stuff in here. How's anybody supposed to get up on a roof with solar panels on it? There's no, I mean, I don't
That's
see
what they're saying. So you have to have access.
how
access
we put access up in there.
It's the positioning of the panels. You make sure that there's part of the roof that somebody can go up next to the panels.
In other words, you can't install panels where someone
You can't do it edge to edge.
Oh, can't go from edge to edge.
Right.
But
That's what it's saying.
yeah, you're not going to put like a fire escape thing so people can get up on the roof. That's not what the intention is. The intention is that if someone has a hook and ladder that they're going up there, they can walk on the roof surface without walking on the solar panels.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, typically
That's
there's
what it's
space
saying.
apart.
That's what that's saying.
So not to the edge of the roof.
Never to the edge, but
Yeah.
even space in the roof,
Yeah.
there is space.
There has to be adequate space in order to
Yeah.
access the panel.
Well, that's
And
actually-
Peter Benson, who's on the fire squad, had some words about that with me, and I sent him the wording that we were putting in, and he said it was fine. Between
Okay.
that plus on the other side where we have to maintain, you have to comply with all current building, electric, fire, and other safety codes, state and federal laws and regulations, blah, 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 blah. So that was fine with fire department.
One thing I wonder if we should consider too, and I hadn't thought much about it until all these Tesla fires. You know, and if somebody is off grid and they have their own batteries, because apparently batteries, like in Teslas, they have to be cooled. Toyota's coming out with a solid state battery eventually that doesn't have to be cooled, but how's that going to affect somebody that's off grid? And they have, like I know of one person who has 3 Tesla batteries because they're off grid. And is that a problem? And not only that, but when they go to put the fires out, they can get them out. And that's why, like in Florida, they're setting these, 15 or 25 feet apart because they just burst into flames sitting there. Because that's dealing with salt water. But
It's a problem, but,
I mean, you're right, it's absolutely a problem. In fact,
But it's
if
not
you had
our
a phone that
Oh,
had a
yeah.
problem, it could blow up in your face. We're not trying to create an ordinance that is going to solve the problems of all electronic
well, I'm just thinking the
stuff.
future. I'm not saying now, I'm just saying that.
But still, what we have said is that in here, to, I think Sarah's point, that it has to meet the current regulations.
Mm.
And that's all we can do at the moment.
My guess is if that continues to be a problem, there'll be regulations against it.
Yeah.
But as of now, that's not our province, so to speak.
I mean, if we could figure that out, we could go on,
Be my guess.
we can go out on the road then.
Going back to
Yeah, we
the
do
height that we were just talking about, I can easily separate that out into flat roof and pitched roof.
Okay.
And that'd be probably a lot easier.
I think that might be wise.
Certainly make it clearer.
Yep,
See, my issue was that if we don't like the way a solar panel looks sitting on the ground, if you put that same panel on the top of a house, that's 35 feet up, that's like a billboard for creepy looking.
But
You
if
say,
we don't,
yeah, it's
if
your
we don't
house.
see it, then it's not
But
a
if-
problem.
But how do you not?
But what if you can see it?
Well, then it's a problem, and you can't do it.
Well,
when
no,
you're
that-
driving up Route 16, look at the buildings. There are several of them that have solar panels on them, and I'm sure they've been there for a while, but it was a case a week or two back that I was, as a passenger in the car, to start looking and said, oh, they've got solar panels. Oh, they've got solar
It
panels.
is amazing how
And
many
it's-
houses have solar
And
panels.
it's
Yeah, but it's
dark.
on the roof.
It's on the roof,
It's not like, yeah.
right. So,
I just
That's great.
didn't have all of them on roofs. I wouldn't have them any solar array anywhere. They should be up on the roof so you can't see them.
well, I remember if you go on an airplane and you're flying over the urban area and you say, look at all that
Yeah.
potential for solar energy. But maybe we'll get there
Yeah,
before
there's
we.
some town, you hardly, I mean, Cantex, you hardly notice those panels up there, because it blends right in with the roof.
Right. You can't even see ours. You
Yeah.
should go into the woods.
All right, have we, Scott? Have we beaten the dead horse?
I'm good with it all.
Good.
They got his hat on yet?
No, we still have more work to go. Sorry.
Oh, dear.
Can't leave
Anyway.
solar panels yet, though.
I will,
Solar panels.
This has to go on for another half.
No, that's,
I will do another draft of this and with all the changes we talked about and send it around to everybody in the next day or two.
All right, and
And come back to me if I forgot anything.
yeah, and if there's anything that really requires discussion, we can always schedule another meeting between now and the 12th of January. So, I mean, this was our opportunity to really kind of beat on it. If anybody's got a bug about something and it's really bothersome, let's bring it.
I think you did a great job.
yeah, yes.
No, really.
Sarah, thank you.
Well, Sarah, I think Sarah
Great
did.
job.
Well,
I mean, when you consider how
We're
this
getting
is
there.
toned
We're getting
down and efficient and
Plus, we're gonna have a public meeting, so that'll be interesting.
Yeah, that'll be nice.
So,
Yeah, but again, if there's something really bugging you, and we can agree to have another meeting to settle it out. But I think we've done a pretty good job. If it's nitpicky stuff like you didn't capitalize stuff, get that to Sarah, and you know she's good
that's
about
what I'm
handling
supposed to
this.
do. There was one more thing that the lawyer had to add to it, which was the fact that all solar energy systems for governmental use are exempt from land use regulation pursuant to the RSA 674-54. And he said, you don't have to put it in there because it's already covered by the state. But there was one person who was talking to me about it. Well, what about government, da-da-da-da? So I'm just gonna put it in, so it's there.
Yep,
To answer that question.
and it's per RSA blah 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 blah,
Yeah.
so no one can beat us on it.
Right, and if they don't like the RSA, they can talk to their
They can talk to their
representative.
state representatives. Okay, the one that was supposed to be 755, which we've blown away, we've already talked about the
Yes.
zoning ordinance change, and we're gonna do that with housekeeping, and I think we can do that just by simply either breaking the sentence into two, sentences or just adding a couple of words in, and we'll talk about that next. Short-term rental applications, we have 2.
We have 2. Unfortunately, for some reason, the office did not leave me the folders. I didn't print them because they're normally here, so I just have the top sheets is what I print out for myself. So,
I can access anything you want.
So both of these are new rentals. So they're limited to the 30 rentals. I did send that zip file, actually does contain all of the information about these. One is at 15 Adams, actually 45 Wildflower Lane.
That's off of Tin Mine.
Okay. I think, yes, the individual.
Hello. We finally got you. We finally got you. Sorry for the delay, but if you've been listening, we were talking about important stuff.
No worries, no worries. It's very important and interesting.
Yep. So I don't have any information on that. So I don't need that. So all I know is, this is what I know from Mason. They're on the phone so they can help us. I didn't even put how many offices, because again, I assumed I had the folders, because it's like.
Right, well, is it in the?
Yeah, hang on, I got it.
It is, yeah.
Okay.
I can't pull it up on this because I got these people.
Right, that's fine.
Hang on.
Yeah, all I have were names on my,
You had a zip folder attached to the.
oh, is it, because I didn't,
Okay, which one do you want first? The Adams one?
No, Walwich. That's it.
Okay.
So. So it's at 3 bedrooms, right? Yours is a 3 bedroom, 5 beds, 3 baths?
45 Wildflower, right?
Yes.
Yes, that's a three bedroom, yes.
And the advertisement is for 8 guests?
8 guests?
Yes, that's correct, yep.
Mm-hmm.
What else? Not much.
Nope.
Three
That's pretty
bedroom-
much.
8 guests, 3 bedrooms.
3-bedroom septic?
Yep.
And
There's no septic thing attached.
no, cards. All right. Yeah, it's.
I wonder what house that was.
You want to see it?
Yeah.
Yeah, hang on. Here we go. Gotta go to the right place here.
Next place.
Thank you.
Is that new?
No.
It's a new STR.
That's it.
Can't place it.
Everything's in good order on the application.
Yep.
Do I hear a motion to
I'll make a motion
accept?
to accept it.
Second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any opposed? No opposed? Okay, we're good.
That was a long wait for about 2.5 minutes, right?
Thank you guys, thank you so much.
No, you did a good submission. No problem.
We tried, okay.
Thanks a lot, appreciate it.
Thank you, good night.
The second one is at 59-2 Eastfield Road.
These are the guys that aren't gonna have any water in a couple of years.
Well, you
Oh,
know,
okay.
yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
No,
yeah,
I'm-
well, it's the same thing he was talking about, though, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Okay, these folks have an M&R operator's license. Their advertisement is for 8 guests, 3 bedrooms. They have 6 beds, but hey, 8 guests.
Yeah, I think 2 more. I think 70 puts more, that gives you 8.
Well, if you have 8 guests, you can sleep 1 in each bed and maybe a couple in one bed. Well, that's before your cleaning fees, and that's before your, yeah, by the time you finish, take a look at what those things end up being by the time you finish. That same property, by the time you finish, $485 a night.
That's one of the duplexes there, is it?
Yeah, it's a duplex.
Is it?
Yeah.
No, yeah.
We got 59.2, or there'll be a duplex.
Well, it depends. If you're going for a weekend, you know, if you're just doing it for a week, if you're doing it for a week, it's cheaper because the fee for the cleaning is only a one-time fee.
Yeah.
But say you do it for a weekend, say you can do 2 nights, and the cleaning fee is like $150, right?
Jeez, I gotta get that job, that's pretty good.
Is that a daylight basement in that?
Looks like it.
There was one up there the fire department had an issue with. It was one of the new ones.
Again, we are not required to check that. If you have information that you wish to.
Well, I don't know particularly, I'm
If
in
you,
most of them.
as a planning board, we are not responsible to do a building inspection. And in fact, if we try to do that, we can be sued. So we are not going to do that. Thank you very much. But we can observe, and if we can observe it and it's observable from what has been submitted, then we can make a comment to the Board of Selectmen that said, in review, we observed that there might be an issue of egress.
No, Kevin would pick up on it, so. Because he must review these, doesn't he? The building inspector.
No, he's not required to. In fact, he's prohibited from doing so.
No.
Did the heat go off? I'm cold in here.
Probably. Okay, so.
What's your age?
Yeah, after 10 o'clock, I think.
Yeah, it's just like Dick's
Can we stay here till midnight? I hope.
Yeah. Motion?
All right, so we motion to accept.
I motion to accept.
Second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second to accept. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? No opposed? We're done. The last thing on the agenda, I think, is something, Dick, I think you're responsible for this one.
I missed that.
The last item on the adjournment, I think we're hoping that you might assist us.
in the traditional.
Okay, do I have a motion for adjournment? Second?
I'll second it.
Oh, okay, we have, all in favor?
Aye.
Done, thank you much.
Oh, that was so much fun tonight. I love that.
Not that I'm anxious, you understand.
I can't wait till